once again click the notification bell.
Okay.
I unclicked it and clicked it on again, and I still have not received the notification.
I don't know. I got one person showing that they're watching. Hello.
Okay, you have me too now, and I just gave you a thumbs up.
Yeah, David. Oh, how is it working, David? Let's see. Looks great. Sounds good, I presume. Where did you guys lose me in all this? When did the video disappear? Okay, I just see your message there, little one. Where I was writing hanging wall there? Is that when that happened?
I can't believe I actually got
Okay.
a notification from you. I never get notifications.
Okay. Anyhow, this kind of a support is called a stull. S-T-U-L-L. Just a timber set lengthwise, wedged in place. If you've got pretty solid ground, you don't have too big an opening, and you don't have too much pressure, that can often do it. If you have more pressure or softer rock, you may have to go to what they call a crib set, where you take two timbers this way, then two this way, then two this way, like that. Build it up to the back, wedge it in place, and that provides a much more solid support in that manner. And a standard square set for a tunnel is like this. You have two posts, a cap. I'm not sure what this one's called, the base. Then typically a couple of spreaders. Now, it's perfectly possible to spend a lot of effort carving notches and stuff in the end of the timbers so that all this stuff fits together really well.
David says spreaders is the word you were looking for.
The spreaders are these like pieces of 2x down here. But by using spreaders, in many cases, you can avoid all the fancy carving. It holds things together. And then you could have another set here and a couple lengthwise beams. You can put lagging on top. You can put planking up here to protect you from falling rock. Oh, I got something here that says up to 8. I really hate to even click no on this screen here. Yeah. I'm so hesitant. Let me move my. Let's see what happens. That would depend on the soundness of the rock as to what the distance between these things would be. Also, what you use for lagging on top. I mean, I've seen these as close together as every 2 feet when it's really, kind of crappy rock.
Under those circumstances, would you also have rattle stuff and rock bolts in some cases?
Rattle stuff?
The fencing.
Wire mesh?
Yes.
You can do that. We did when I was working at United Nuclear in kind of soft sandstone. We put in rock bolts and chain link mesh. And in areas that were worse, we'd put in timbering inside the rock bolts and chain link mesh. And for example, one place we would always timber would be intersections on the track level. They tend to be, first of all, you have to have a narrow wedge of rock coming out where your track peels off because the train can't make a sharp turn. And so they'd always timber those because they had to stay open for a long time. They didn't want to worry about anything coming down. So they'd always timber the intersections on the track level.
Brian says he's seen rails driven in over the stalls.
You can do all kinds of stuff. For example, on our ladder track in Montana B, we're using basically stalls underneath it, wedged to the rock, and then just screw the ladder track onto that. You can play a lot of games with timbers, and what's amazing is how well wedging will hold stuff in place. When you wedge stuff in place, it tends to just stay there if you do a good job. A little bit of a socket to make sure you've got a good bite into the rock, and then wedge that sucker, and it has a tendency to just stay there forever. So say when we're down there at Montana B, that can happen, David, but I have seen a lot more where it starts crumbling and goes in stages. It doesn't just all go thump, usually. It starts crumbling and pieces start moving, and you go, wow, that's not looking good. And you can back out like that. Hey, Gold Addict, you can retreat and pull support as you go, the pillars of rock as you go, and let it fall down behind you. That's also possible. How big of timbers do you need? Again, depends on the pressure. Depends on how much weight you're trying to hold up. When I was at United Nuclear, we used 8x8s was kind of our standard. If you really needed some strength, you might put in steel caps. I don't recall seeing steel posts, but you'd put in H-beam for caps. This especially likely if you had like an intersection on the rail level, because now you're getting a pretty good span. When you got two tracks breaking apart from each other, you got 20, 25 foot span there, and wood's not going to hold up too well. So now you're looking like 10-inch by 10-inch H-beam with half-inch thick metal, stuff like that. And again, it's all situationally dependent. When I'm working at Montana B, I had there it is. At Montana B, we have an existing decline. Here's the side of the hill, and here's the decline. And what we did was we started taking a slice out of the decline. We just increased the angle here. And the problem is pretty quickly, this distance here would get to be pretty big. This is 60-degree slope here. This is 60 degrees here. So that's pretty steep. So as we're going down, before we continue, we'll go ahead and put in some stalls and a deck. And so all the way up, we have these decks, about every 5 feet or something like that, whatever's convenient. But the idea is that way, nowhere can a rock free fall very far at all. It's going to hit a deck.
Storage space.
And they have turned out to be very good storage shelves too. And she is absolutely correct. One thing I found out was I made this distance here kind of the minimum distance that you can climb down past without hitting anything or whatever. It clears your head. But that way you can turn around on the ladder and put stuff on those decks And they come in very handy for storage, very handy indeed. And so that works out quite well. For your boom box, sure. 6 meter clay, then small to medium boulders.
Well, that certainly sounds
all manual digging and no equipment. I would start by putting a collar where you extend the beams above surface level. Kind of like this, Tricky. Okay, here's your surface. Lay some beams like this. And you got cross beams in here. And these go well out there. And then you can dig a little bit here and put more beams in here. You can also, if you want, drive what they call spiling, is basically just heavy planking, and you put it behind this here, and you drive it down as you go. As you dig this out here, then you drive this down, put this in to support it, do the same thing on all three sides, and then take out another slice. And by doing that, you take it like a foot at a time, but it keeps you nice and safe by alternating the, let's see, this is,
I would think some plywood wall would
hidden
come
line
in
here.
handy because any moisture.
And then this is the end of a beam. And then this one, the beam is on the inside of these two. So you're alternating these beams just like a crib set as you go down. And that'll get you through some pretty soft soil and provides a lot of safety. Hey, Richard. So by taking it down, let's say you're only going down 1 foot at a time, driving your spiling, putting in another set of timbers, and then digging another foot, driving your spiling down and like that. And then as you go down, you also hook these timbers to each other. You can do that by laying lagging in the corners and nailing them to the leg. So all this stuff is hanging from these big timbers here. It tends to get wedged in a bit here, but it's essentially hanging. And that,
what about when you get to the boulders?
When you get to the boulders, as the soil gets better, you can get away with more. Okay. But you can work your way down like that fairly safely.
Yeah, like building a log cabin from the bottom. Exactly, Brian.
Yeah, it just upside down is all. Oh, in the dark. No, it isn't, Brian. When you're at surface, it's daylight up there.
Well, that's what headlamps are for anyway.
Yeah, but that's what you can do, Tricky. But yeah, essentially, yeah, it's like building a log cabin in reverse. This would be your foundation, and then you just put your layers on, and then, but you have to hang. The gravity is not your friend in this case. Okay. And occasionally you may want to drive rods into the walls to support stuff or something like that. Okay. So you can do that and get to fairly good depths.
Candlelit mine.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to upgrade carbide headlamps.
If you have more stable soil, you could increase the depth between sets. You might do 2 feet between sets or something to that effect. You still want to have your lagging on the outside and then put in another timber set. what's his name? Jeff Williams.
What's the technique called? Tricky says.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's essentially a crib set that you're building again from the top down. If you're just taking, if you're putting distance between these two, it's like a square set. And Jeff Williams used that technique to line a shaft he had, and he has some videos on that. Where I differ from Jeff Williams is rather than doing a very nice job of carving the ends of the beam so that everything fits together and nails together like that, I prefer just using lagging and screws or nails to hold everything together.
Yeah, Brian Smith has really good advice there, Oak Island.
Yeah, that same sort of thing. You have a highly unstable situation, and
lots of mud in that case, and a very bad water table.
So you have to, build it as you go, and build it very securely because it's likely to have pressure and stuff. You may have to do a lot of pumping depending upon the situation. If it's a clay soil, it shouldn't be too bad because it's not going to have high permeability. A sandy or gravelly soil, you're going to have a lot more permeability for the water. You might have to do more pumping, but considering how much water you've got to deal with from the get-go, Tricky, you're going to have some pumping going on there too. What's the total depth you're going to need to get?
6 meters, I believe he said.
6 meters? Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard. And then you can have rails along one side where you can run a skip. Something like my ladder track would work fine. The only difference is on the hoisting carriage, you need to have some hooks to go around the rail to keep it from coming off if you're going up vertically. Since we're going down at a 60-degree angle, gravity works. But you can have in my case, ladder track does both. You could have a ladder on one side and skip on the other. You can have a head frame up here of some sort where you're just lowering your mucking device. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and you can also build a double compartment shaft, which is what what's his name, Jeff Williams did. Looking down from the top, what they did was they had, this is getting pretty crappy. See if I got another one in here. Should have 2 black ones.
David Diaz says manway.
Well, that would be the other compartment. If you do a 2-compartment shaft, see basically what Jeff Williams did is a 2-compartment shaft, kind of like this. And this is hoisting, and this is manway. And so you've got them separated. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're only going 20 feet deep and you're not going to be doing a great deal of hauling of material, you don't necessarily need a double compartment shaft. Okay. Five foot by 3 foot on 12-pound rail. Yeah, that'll do fine.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, let's say 45 feet again, with good workers, which you should have in the Philippines. You should be able to advance a couple of feet a shift. Once you get down a little bit, they'll know exactly what size timbers to cut, et cetera, and it'll be pretty easy to, work it down. Another thing you can do is on these, you can, once you're below surface, you can kind of make this one a little longer, this one a little longer. So as you're down there, you dig a hole over here, stick it in there, swing it in place, and hang it from the stuff above, and then alternate. So as you're going down, you're sticking these in the wall, and that'll become very solid over time as that earth and clay kind of moves in and wedges it in place. It'll grab those protuberances and provide extra support. But the very bottom is going to be hanging, but up higher, once the walls close in a bit, will basically be self-supporting. I don't know, Chris. I have no freaking clue. It's probably the big solar flare or something. But I know they're saying there's supposed to be aurora next, Thursday?
The 13th.
The 13th. Wow, that's a nice lucky number there.
Tricky's got problems over there with the good workers part. And you can't tell them they can't have beer. That won't work.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Tricky. I'll say, getting good laborers and discreet workers is kind of tough.
Especially with something like that.
You know, and in your case, yeah, especially.
Well, Adam is checking Down Detector to see if something's going on.
What is Down Detector?
It's a website that does nothing but keep track of what websites are down and what parts of the internet are non-functional.
Okay.
Since many parts of the internet are often non-functional.
Okay, thank you, Adam. But yeah, there's these types of things are fairly standard. It's been around a long time, and so it's not exactly new tech. I'll say it's one of those things. Yeah, proven in time. So I say you can do a lot of different things. Depends on what kind of wood you have available. For example, if you had like palm trunks, they're not nearly as good as, say, fir. Are you going to go, round, squared, just kind of shaved flat on one side, things like that? Hey, there you go, Jim.
Carved like totem pole? Oh, mine are Jim! Woohoo!
Oh, I still got your little scoops from from Prospector Trip here, Jim. Oh, hi, honey bunny. Taking nap, huh? Adam's guessing bandwidth overload. I don't know. It's kind of odd to see it. It's now dropped out 2 or 3 times on its own. I mean, it wasn't doing anything, and it just died. So it's hard to tell. I'm guessing that that the physical infrastructure isn't keeping up with the demand.
Jim's been off grid.
Custom plate. Live to dig. Something's foobar, huh? Well, I'm wondering why NASA was saying that the internet may go down for a while too. I don't know if that has to do with the sun or what. Hi, Red Wing. Not sure what's going on. So I don't know. You found out clarifier floats gold. Could. I really have no idea, Shaggy. Cool, honey bunny. So yeah, life gets complicated, but when in doubt, make it stronger. Oh my goodness, I'm actually starting to get hungry. That's silly. Oh, I just had a pasty about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, that's silly. You're not allowed to get hungry.
Hydraulic slip. By that, do you mean they put cement in there, or are you talking something else, honey bunny?
Whoa. Blind dude got some good ammo for slingshot.
Oh. Everything seems to be going okay, just a little slow. You could use all kinds of different kind of grouting applications too, honey bunny, by pushing a cement grout of some sort. Think of it as like a mortar, you know. That's one of the things Lauren has been doing is mortaring joints in pavers, because up here water gets next to your pavers or underneath them and it'll freeze and do horrible things to it. So you have to add a lot of effort up here when you're putting in pavers. Yeah, as long as they're not too long, they would probably work okay, especially if you squared them off just a little bit. And so um, you can play all kinds of games. Just use your head, but I don't. It shouldn't be too hard as long as you got plenty of timber and you can just work your way down carefully. And say hang them as you go. Start real wide on the top, at least a couple timbers that extend quite a ways out there, and then start hanging them. She's got 2 children, blind dude, and so their last name is Landry, and it was simpler in some ways to just leave it like that. It wasn't a matter of she refused my last name or anything. It's just it was simpler for some things. So that's it. We've actually been married twice, because not that we became unmarried, but she suffered a brain injury from an illness and some medication, and lost some memories. And so
Adam says something happened around 5 p.m. There was a big spike in offline reports during that time.
Yeah. I'm actually pretty proud of her. You mind if I presume you don't mind if I tell the story, right?
Yeah, you don't have to go into serious detail. But, yeah.
Let's say she had encephalitis, and then that caused her to be getting some really terrible headaches. I mean, they would knock her unconscious, and so they were trying different medications on her. And one morning, when I went to the bathroom, came back to bed, she was having a nightmare. And so I woke her up. And this is kind of a visual here. Eva's laying in bed, and she's kind of whimpering and stuff. And then she goes, I wake her up, and she goes, I'm naked, you're naked. I have breasts. I presume this means we know each other. She lost everything since 1976. So at that point, she was mentally 12 years old again. I thought she handled it pretty well. So I told her, you're safe where you're at.
Well, yeah, that's because I'm a goddess, dude.
And,
We all know this.
I don't want you to do anything you're not comfortable with. And you have plenty of time to decide what you feel. If you want to leave after you've got your feet under you and everything, you're free to do so. If you want to stay, that's up to you. It'll be your choice. So, to make a long story short, she decided to stay. And then we got married again. What was it? 2 years ago up here? 1 year ago?
Yeah, a couple of years ago up here.
Yeah.
When we'd actually been married 15 years already, according to you.
So, let's say, so we've been married twice. But I guess I'm so forgettable that she didn't remember the first time. No. Let's say that's basically the story of why we've been married twice. We've been together since 2005, which I'm 60 years old. I get to use it.
18 years.
18 years? Yeah. So we've been together for 18 years. And still going strong. But yeah. One thing about us, we're not normal.
We actually don't.
Does she get upset if you forget the anniversary date? Which anniversary date? Not really. We don't have much in the way of an anniversary date.
The second one is on my birthday, technically.
Yeah. Was that, we got it on your birthday? Okay. So.
Yeah. Well, the paperwork says Valentine's Day. It was a joke.
Okay. Yeah. That has some bad connotations from a long time ago before she met me. But anyhow, so the one nice thing is Valentine's Day is one day after her birthday. So, and her birthday is 5 days after mine.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy for me to remember. My birthday, okay, hers is coming up soon.
And the rules are very easy to remember. Nothing red, nothing heart-shaped, no red roses ever.
Yep. And
period.
So that makes it kind of simple. So that works out fairly well. I do recall a long time ago, I was reading a Dear Abby, where this guy said, my wife and I got married, we love each other, blah, blah, blah. But my mom couldn't seem to remember what her anniversary date was. She would always send us an anniversary card, like 3 or 5 days ahead of time. And so one time when it was just me and her, he said, hi, Mom, and everything. He goes, but you always send the anniversary card too early. It's this date. And she goes, yeah. Have you ever forgotten it? Now that's the kind of mother-in-law I like, Not anymore, huh, blind dude? So anyhow, that makes life simple. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride at times. And let's see, anything else? Not that comes to mind right quick. Yeah, Shaggy.
Shaggy.
Things happen, that's for sure. What's interesting is how often you can look back and say, wow, that was really close. I almost got totaled on that one. Hey, Lauren, how's it going?
Hi, Lauren.
Yep. And then occasionally it's like, somebody gets really messed up with almost nothing. I had a friend who became paralyzed for life because he was swimming in the river and just dove just a little surface. He was in like, waist deep water and just went to start swimming, didn't have his hands in front of him. There was a sandbar there, hit his head, broke his neck, paralyzed for life. Now, how many times have you hit your head? And I know with me, it's been a lot. So, yeah, it's weird. Yeah, if we can get to the Philippines, you're invited. Oh, we could maybe have a birthday live stream or something tricky. But yeah, it's one of those things. That's why as you get older, you take less chances because you've seen people get really messed up. I had a worker. His name was John. He was a good worker. He was young, like 20, 21, something like that. Good worker, nice guy. He had a friend that the tie rod came loose on his car. So it was parked at the side of a road. So he was underneath the car fixing the tie rod. Somebody ran into the back of the car and drove the tie rod right through his chest. Wow. What a shame. I'll say these things happen, but it sucks. So you just, I say, as you get a little older, you no longer feel immortal.
Here.
Well, we pretty much used up the mining stuff. Somebody asked something, we'll rock on it. Absolutely tricky. You see it all the time on YouTube where they'll have 2 or 3 or 4 people. I know Prospector Radio Live does that. And when her sons are here, we'll see if we can get some software that'll allow us to do that. So like, we got Rock Butcher that, can do some interesting stuff. And it would be nice for us to be able to post pictures and photo micrographs and things like that so that it would be easier for you to see, what we're talking about, stuff like that. And so when her sons are here, we'll see what we can do. I don't know, Brian. I like some of my days below ground too. Every day with an oxygen addiction is a good one, huh? I'm trying to keep my oxygen addiction as long as possible. So, as I say, we're going to see about trying to get that done while they're here, and that opens up some possibilities too. So, we got people like Rock Butcher and Chris and a few others that are pretty smart. It would be nice to be able to like bring them in, like we used to do with Jim before he went somewhere else. Exactly, Tricky. I say that would be good. I know it can be done. It's not terribly challenging to do. The people that are looking to maybe doing some video up here, they like to do Zoom meetings and stuff like that. I say I don't. There's so much tech out there. It's a matter of figuring out how to do it. Discord is pretty easy. I wouldn't know Discord sounds like people not getting along to me. I have no idea why anyone would name their platform Discord, but oh well. pretty pretty good. It's kind of like you get some acronyms like gays against groomers. Now that's an unfortunate acronym. I don't think they hate me. They enjoy tormenting me. Um, it's pure sadism is all. But they seem to enjoy it. They seem to be quite enthusiastic at times for no apparent reason. But we'll see what we can get going while they're here. It shouldn't be too hard. We should be able to do something. Roger that, Tricky. We'll figure it out. And then we'll probably set up something. We don't get too many people on the live stream anyhow, so we could set up just like a live stream and do it. No big deal. You get some of the bigger channels, testing something like that, on a full live stream. A lot of people would be wondering what was going on. I say, we'll check it out. And truck seems to be running pretty good. I still think the carburetor needs a rebuild. But last week, it did a good job running through the thing here. Let's see. Let me close this. And should I go to Google Earth on that one, little one? I want to measure the distance between Highway 12 and Interstate 15 across the mountains there.
Yeah, you can.
That should probably be a little better than touching that other computer. Who knows what'll happen if I touch it? Let's see, Google Earth Pro. And let's see. RIMINI Montana. Okay, let's see. There we go there. Yeah, that was Bald Mountain, little one.
Yeah.
That one with all the red and everything.
Mountain.
I don't think so. Let's see here. No, you're right. Red Mountain.
Yeah, I looked it up earlier on your computer.
Okay, there's an old Baldy there just below it. That's right. Not mistaken. Jefferson High School. Basin. Okay, so tools, ruler, basin to Highway 12 at Rimini Road. $304. Well, obviously something is horribly awry with that. Where the heck is Basin? You ever had Deer Lodge National Forest? Dillon. Oh, I hate these stupid frickin' things here. Should be right around in there. There's Basin. Click. Ground length, 110,525 feet. That'd be what, 20 miles?
Yeah, something like that.
Let's see. Let's go to miles here.
Miles.
There's miles. 20 miles. Yeah, it was a lot farther than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yep. So It wasn't all uphill, but there was a lot of uphill and a lot of downhill. It was pretty country. The road was in general in pretty good shape. I mean, we could have made it with the van. There were places where, yeah, it's not the best idea to drive a van through that, but we could have done it. There was one spot where the van might not have made it because we had these large kind of divots in the road that were full of water. It was very wet on the south side of the ridge. And there's one where when the truck went in it, you could feel it splooge in the mud. So that might have grabbed the van and kept it there. But everything else, we're just in two-wheel drive, just first gear to keep it slow and gentle and like that. And it worked just fine. I hear there's also a road between Elliston
I was
and
looking at that one on your computer earlier.
let's see, where's Elliston? That would be, hello. Where's Elliston? Oh my goodness.
I was looking at that one on your computer earlier while you were going.
Rimini, there we go. Elliston Elementary. Well, that's probably near Elliston then. And then across, yeah. Yeah, it's about the same distance.
Yeah.
Kind of like a triangle between the two. Yeah, that might be an interesting trip sometime.
No, that was kind of what I was looking at. One of the other roads that I contemplated turning down
Yeah.
would have taken us out. We would have exited out at Elliston.
Okay. Yes, it is beautiful country. It would be even more beautiful if they'd thinned the forest so the bark beetles weren't killing everything and the trees were in good shape. But unfortunately, the Forest Service won't allow them to do that for whatever bizarre reason. As Chris can tell you, the experts know how to manage forests. They're not allowed to manage forests, unfortunately. Yeah, that whole area is just loaded with mines too. Rimini area, lots and lots of mines. Basin, lots of mines. Yeah, there's a lot of mineralization there. Could be, David. I think it's just the environmentalists are just philosophically against people. You know, they quite often don't seem to have any logical thought processes behind what they're doing if keeping people alive is a goal. Now, if keeping people alive isn't a goal, a lot of what they do makes perfect sense.
Yeah, tree huggers is one name for them. I
Yeah,
call them eco-terrorists myself.
yeah, they're pretty
Greeny weenies.
whack. There's conservationists, there's rational environmentalists, and things like that. I mean, people that do math and can take a look at mining and alternative energy sources and things like that and do the math and go, okay, this doesn't make sense. This can make sense. But the people who are environmental, yeah, okay. And that's where the guy, what's his name? Moore.
Michael Moore.
No, like Patrick Moore or something, Dr. Patrick Moore or something like that. Yeah, he was one of the co-founders of Greenpeace. He's a rational environmentalist. He does the math. And while he's not terribly personally worried about anthropogenic global warming and specifically carbon dioxide, as a matter of fact, he makes a good case that carbon dioxide was so low that if it dropped by another 50 parts per million, life on Earth would cease because photosynthesis would cease. But anyhow, he's like, we need to go nuclear. Nuclear can replace 3/4 of all of our energy needs. If it doesn't move, you can power it with nuclear. And makes perfect sense to me. These windmills we see moving down the road here all the time. Just, the numbers don't add up. They're not efficient. When you figure all the resources you put into building the windmills and how much energy you get out, it does, it doesn't make sense. And then when you look at how little available wind and solar there is, we can't survive if we get rid of fossil fuels to go to alternative energy. You're going to have to get rid of a lot of people to make that happen.
Don't threaten them with a good time, dude. You forget we're talking about a bunch of natalists here, anti-natalists.
Shaggy, apparently not, because Ukraine said that Russia was going to blow it up. Russia invited inspectors and say, anybody see any explosives? And the inspectors go, no, nobody sees any explosives. There was a threat. Absolutely. The Russians were pointing fingers at Ukraine, saying they're going to shoot this and try and blame us. The Ukrainians were saying the Russians were going to blow it up. The Russians just invited inspectors in and said, take a look. You see any explosives?
3, I'll get you 5. It was the CIA.
Yeah, and then Eva says, yeah, it's the CIA behind it. And she's probably right, or similar sort of thing. But anyhow, yeah, it was a nuclear power plant, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and there was a threat to blow it up. It was not, 3 of the 4 reactors had not been operating for several months, although they're still in a cool down cycle. I like the way you put that, honey bunny. The CIA is behind almost everything, but the globalists are behind the CIA. That sounds about right to me, but I have no firm evidence. But anyhow, so yes, nuclear power plants have issues. But as somebody brought up, they were of the opinion that the, what was it? The Fukushima power plant explosions killed like 15,000 people. And that was not accurate. Even Wikipedia said there's no proof that anyone died from the Fukushima meltdowns and explosions. 15,000 people died from the earthquake, which was the proximate cause of the tsunami, which was the cause of the damage that caused the meltdown. Because the geologists, at the time they built the power plant, had told the engineers and the regulators and everything else, you never get a tsunami more than 30 feet. Well, they were wrong. So the plant was built to handle a 30-foot tsunami, which it would have handled just fine. Instead, it got a 70-foot tsunami, which it didn't handle just fine. You've got to design for what actually happens. And sometimes, for reasons that are really beyond anyone's responsibility, things happen that were essentially unpredictable. Other times, things are going to happen that are very difficult to predict in terms of when they're going to happen, but we can say, yeah, this is going to happen and it's going to really suck. They say, according to Wikipedia, they say 0 from acute radiation poisoning. Yeah.
Nukes are safe.
Relatively. I mean, they do have problems. Wiki is global. Yeah, that's true, but that's why they would have made it.
Well, at least they're not eco-disasters like dang wind turbines or solar panels. Speaking of which, hi, everybody. Speaking of which, I believe it was in Nebraska or someplace similar, some flyover place with a very large solar field thing. Let us have a moment of silence because yesterday massive thunderstorms moved through that particular area. with massive, large pieces of hail that multiplied an entire solar field.
A solar farm?
As in multiplied it. Sadly, the inspectors have stated that all of those solar panels and all the silver and other metals in them are going to be landfilled because there is no practical, economical way to recycle them. So much for the Great Green Agenda in this regard. Hi, Brian. The goddess shall once again state that she is not in favor of wind turbines or solar power to any great extent, as they are not green, period, end of story. The goddess likes real green things, not AstroTurf fake green things, okay? Patriot Battery Metals hits back at short seller report. So we got a little bit of sketchy gossip stuff going on in the stock market apparently here. Canadian lithium explorer Patriot Battery Metals refuted on Monday claims published in a short seller report, stating the assertions made by night market research were factually inaccurate and misleading. The short seller said on July 6th it attributed Patriot's stock price rally to promotion efforts with unnamed marketing outlets that other Tier 1 developers would avoid. Patriot Battery Metals is a rare mining unicorn, a lithium explorer ascending to a $2 billion valuation despite having acquired its core asset for $8 million only 16 months ago and lacking an established maiden resource, the report said. Wow, sounds a lot like a tech company. How bizarre. The North American firm also suggested Patriot had used curiously timed buyout rumors to inflate its share price, and that lithium reserves at the flagship Corvette lithium project in Quebec, Canada, were 40% lower than what the explorer has said. Oh, really now? Shares in Patriot were halted on Monday in Australia after the Vancouver-based Lithium Junior was asked to respond to the bruising report in line with Australian Securities and Investment Commission regulations. I wouldn't normally be so direct, and that's not really my style, Chairman Ken Brinsden told the Australian Financial Review. I just think some of what they've said is pretty frustrating, a bit outrageous, and inconsistent with the facts we have presented to our investors. Sounds like a tech company. How bizarre. Brinsden, who left the top job at Pilbara Minerals in July 2022 and emerged as chairman of Patriot Battery Metals a month later, added the company had enlisted the help of lawyers to deal with night market research's claims. Our Corvette lithium project in Quebec is a really significant discovery in which I have deliberately chosen to get involved, he told AFR. The executive added he wouldn't have gotten involved with the lithium project and have all the key elements, including opportunity and development potential. Short sellers make money as share prices fall. Yeah. Night market research has targeted several companies in the past 4 years, including New York-listed medical device manufacturer Zynex and Toronto-listed Cielo Waste Solutions. Rumors of Australian players eyeing Patriot as a potential acquisition target have been on Australian media on and off this year. In February, it was said that Mineral Resources, Pilbara Minerals, and Wesfarmers were all interested in buying the Canadian miner, or at least a stake in it. Australian lithium miners such as Pilbara Minerals, Orocobre, and Galaxy Resources are all looking to expand their global footprint and diversify their supply sources amid rising demand for battery metals. Analysts say they see Patriot Battery Metals as an attractive opportunity to gain access to the North American market and secure long-term supply contracts with leading battery manufacturers. Quebec has become a hard rock lithium hotspot as companies vie to supply the surging electric vehicle market. The federal government approved the James Bay Open Pit project by Galaxy Resources as part of Alichem in January. Azimuth Exploration has its own James Bay area project, and Sayona Mining expects the first spodumene shipment from its North American lithium operation to take place this month. Very interesting. The goddess has never quite decided whether it's a red flag or a green flag to have one of the short selling vulture companies like this going after you on the stock market. It's quite fascinating to watch. And yes, China is trying to secure more metals everywhere. China already controls over 90% of the critical rare earths and other green agenda BS market when it comes to metals. So that is something that definitely needs to be considered in the middle of all this. And yes, there are more articles about lithium because lithium right now is big, 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 big news. The goddess understands that people are interested in lithium. The goddess is more interested in gold, of course, like any reasonable person would be, and silver, because silver is where it's at. Okay? We're not even going to go for anything other than silver here. So, BRICS countries planning new gold-backed currency. They say where there's smoke, there's fire. And despite the mainstream media, most of our federal government, most of the other Western governments, and a whole lot of other people studiously ignoring what's going on in the BRICS right now, we're seeing more and more communications between the BRICS and everybody else, and a whole lot more trade going on there. And that trade ain't happening in dollars. It's happening in yuan, as a matter of fact. Interestingly enough, it's happening in yuan. And as a random side note, apparently our Justice Department is charging a dual American and Israeli citizen with a whole long list of spy type activities and NARA violations. Of course, it is entirely coincidental that the dual citizen involved in this investigation that's probably going to end up getting arrested for a whole bunch of really bad NARA charges is a whistleblower who was like trying to talk to the FBI and a few government agencies about serious corruption in a certain very influential family, a member of whom currently occupies the albino McMansion. But that's a whole other story, and obviously, we can't have dual citizens running around doing spy things, Just saying. As tensions with Russia and China escalate, the so-called BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are preparing to strike a blow against the US dollar hegemony. Last week, the Russian embassy in Kenya declared the BRICS countries are planning to introduce a new trading currency which will be backed by gold. Although any claims coming from Russian sources invite skepticism, independent analysts expect BRICS to continue to pursue de-dollarization and for gold to play a role in that process. A more specific framework for gold-backed BRICS currency could be announced during the BRICS summit being held next month in South Africa. Investors shouldn't expect China or other major powers to declare an immediate abandonment of the Federal Reserve note, dollar, in international trade. For now, there exists no single universally preferred alternative. Leslie Masdorf, vice president of the BRICS New Development Bank, said it's going to take a very long time for currency movements to take shape, so any discussion of alternative currencies is indeed a much more medium and longer term aspiration. Yeah. That said, the trend of de-dollarization isn't some far-off future fantasy. It is happening now. Federal Reserve notes as a proportion of foreign reserves have been steadily declining over the past few years. Russia has had no choice but to pursue alternatives to the dollar in response to it being blacklisted from the Swiss international payments regime. Other nations have taken notes of this retaliatory blacklisting, something the U.S. hasn't even done during the Cold War, and have been increasingly repatriating their gold holdings to ensure against future attacks or sanctions. Now China's looking to strike back at the U.S. as well. President Joe Biden called China's Xi Jinping a dictator. The Biden administration officials attempted to downplay the characterization, but offense was clearly taken by the Chinese Communist Party. China moved to enact export controls on critical commodities, including rare earth metals. The United States is nearly 100% dependent on China to supply certain of these rare earths, which are needed in high-tech and energy applications. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, the bobbing water bird doll looking type lady, went to Beijing to try to assuage the Chinese, insisting she wants the two powers to remain trading partners rather than adversaries. And if you missed her doing the water bobbing bird bowing thing with the Chinese dude, look up the video. It was actually quite hilarious. Implicit in her appeal to China is any move on the part of the Chinese to ditch the US dollar and conduct trade in an alternate gold-backed currency would be viewed as an escalation of hostilities. Of course, there's nothing the Biden administration can do to prevent China, its trading partners, or other countries around the world from continuing to accumulate gold as monetary reserves. The mere fact gold is being considered by BRICS countries as a basis for international trade should incentivize central banks and individual investors to accumulate precious metals. If gold's role as a global alternative currency is to increase, then so likely will the price. Now, it should be noted that it's been, I believe, about a month now. It might be as long as 6 weeks. It might even be as long as 7 weeks. Anyway, it's been about a minute since we suspended the debt ceiling entirely until 2024, after the election, of course. And in case you missed it, according to the U.S. debt clock, we've added just about $1 trillion with a T in debt since the debt ceiling was suspended about a month and a half ago. Bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that when they suspended this thing, the CBO and a few other voices over there who are still moderately sane in Mordor on the Potomac spoke up and said, you do realize that means at our current rate of spending in a couple of years, we'll be at $36 trillion, right? And everybody said, oh, poo-poo. Tisk, tisk. Tut, tut. It is to laugh. Silly, silly people. This isn't a problem at all. Well, now, unless the goddess's math has gone a little bit awry here, 36 minus 31 is 5 trillion. Okay, follow my fingers so far. So 5 trillion in about 3 years. We've had 1 trillion in about 2 months. So 2 months times 6 would be 12 months, which would be 1 year. So at our current rate of spending, we can expect to add 6 trillion this year. Now, the goddess is very much hoping that the federal government has not realized that, they have an option to continue the current rate of spending. The goddess is hoping against hope that this $1 trillion kerfluffle is a rounding error, and it's going to not hold true. But even if it does hold and we go back to spending what we were, then that means we're going to end up at $36 trillion about a year and a half earlier, or a year earlier than they said we were. But, oh, well, I mean, that's neither here nor there. As we all know, no other country with a fiat currency actually has a debt limit. A debt limit is like last millennium or something. So, it's not likely really kind of sort of needed that whole thing. And in other random government news, it's a really bad idea to go looking for things on Fred right now because a whole lot of things have disappeared off Fred. It's bizarre and unaccountable how that happens, but they're just abducted by 404 cyber aliens, I guess, or something, because it's getting harder and harder to find those